The engine coughed. Eden gripped the sides of her seat, fingers white-knuckled as the float plane lurched again, this time more violently. Outside the window, Louisiana's wetlands sprawled endlessly, green, brown, and water stitched together like a living, breathing thing. Below, cypress knees pierced the marsh like teeth. "Mayday!" the pilot barked into the radio. Static answered him. The signal was gone. Another jolt. Something exploded under the wing. Eden didn't scream, but her heart did. She braced. They hit. Water. Hard. The plane cracked open like an egg, and the cold shock of the swamp swallowed her whole. When she came up, the world was sideways. Her backpack, gone. Her shoes, gone. Her knee screamed. But it wasn't until she dragged herself onto a patch of mucky land that she saw the snake, sleek, black, coiled. Then it struck. Pain bloomed sharp and electric, right above her ankle. Eden cried out, a choked primal sound, and fell back into the mud. The snake slithered away, its job done, her vision spun. She tried to crawl, but her leg throbbed like fire. Every breath was a fist. The swamp pulsed around her, thick with heat. Insects. Rot. "Not like this," she whispered, choking. "Not here." Somewhere nearby, a twig snapped. At first, she thought the figure was part of the swamp. A mirage, maybe. He moved like it belonged to him. A tall man, lean and weather-worn, with a lantern in one hand and a canvas bag slung over his shoulder. No expression. No rush. "Snake bite," he said flatly. Eden blinked. "Help." He was already kneeling. Without a word, he pulled a knife from his belt, small, clean, worn, and sliced through her pants just above the bite. She flinched, but he didn't look up. He reached into his bag, pulled out a cluster of leaves, crushed them between his palms until they bled green. "What are you—" "Still," he said. "Or you'll lose the leg. Maybe the rest." He smeared the paste on her wound. It burned, like acid. Eden screamed. "Good," he muttered. The world tilted. The stars above smeared like wet paint. Eden's lips moved, but no sound came. "Stay with me," the man said. His voice was low, solid. "You stop now. You stop for good." She wanted to ask his name, ask where the hell she was. Instead, darkness curled in from the edges, thick and sweet and final. She woke to the sound of dripping water. The ceiling, above her, was rough-hewn wood. Shadows danced across it, cast by a single flickering lantern. Somewhere close, she heard the pop and hiss of a fire. The air smelled of smoke, earth, salt, and something sharp. Pine or oil or medicine. Her leg throbbed. She turned her head. The man was there, seated at a small table. He was grinding something in a mortar, the motion steady and unhurried. A long scar curved over his forearm. His clothes were simple, worn boots, rolled sleeves, canvas pants. He hadn't shaved in days. "Where?" Her voice cracked. He glanced over. "You're alive." "That's good news," she whispered. "You shouldn't be." "What?" "Cottonmouths don't miss. You're lucky I found you." Eden tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her thigh. She fell back, gasping. He didn't move to help. "This place, what is it?" "My home." She blinked at the walls. Wood planks, maps pinned with rusted tacks, a shelf stacked with herbs and glass jars. The cabin rocked gently. She was on water. "A houseboat?" "Floating cabin? You live here?" He didn't answer. He returned to his grinding. "What's your name?" He paused, but only for a second. "Wes. No last name." "You didn't. Ask mine." "Didn't need it." Well, she said, forcing air into her lungs, it's Eden. A flicker of something passed behind his eyes. Recognition? Surprise? Disappointment? But then, nothing. He stood, crossed the room, and handed her a small cup. Drink. She took it. The liquid smelled like rust and dirt and bark. What is it? Pain. Survival. She drank. It was worse than she expected. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Eden drifted in and out, floating between fever dreams and the steady rhythm of water beneath her. She saw flashes, her father's face at boardroom tables, Thomas's hand reaching for hers at press events, photographers shouting her name like she was a prize. And now, none of them knew where she was. For the first time in her life, she was off the grid. Untethered. Unowned. Wes checked her bandage once more before blowing out the lantern. She opened her eyes, just barely. You didn't even ask me why I was out here. He didn't turn. Didn't matter. It might. Later. A pause. Why did you help me? She asked. Wes was quiet for a long time. Then finally, because I looked up, and there you were, dying. He moved to the far end of the cabin, rolled out a mat near the door. No fuss. No closeness. Eden stared at the rafters above her, the sound of frogs and wind and swamp birds filling the silence between them. She thought of how fast life had shifted, from penthouse to swamp, from designer heels to being barefoot, in the mud, from a name the world chased to a girl a stranger didn't care to ask about. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid. The morning light came in soft, muted bands through the slatted shutters. It filtered across the floor in long streaks, illuminating the dust dancing in the air. The scent of smoke still clung to the wood, mingling with something slightly citrusy, maybe dried orange peel hanging from the ceiling rafters. Eden stirred. Her leg ached, but the swelling had gone down slightly. The bandage, coarse linen, slightly damp, had been replaced while she slept. She wasn't sure if that comforted her or made her skin crawl. She sat up too quickly and regretted it instantly. The pain flared, sharp and hot. She let out a hiss. From the far corner of the cabin, Wes looked up from where he was tying bundles of herbs with twine. "You're awake," he said. "Not a question. A fact." "No thanks to you," she muttered. He arched an eyebrow but didn't respond. "You could have brought me to a hospital," she added. "No hospitals out here. Closest one's 2 days away by water. You wouldn't have made it." Eden studied him. He didn't look like a wild man. Not quite. He was rugged, yes. Sun-weathered. Skin. Dark hair a little too long, and hands that looked like they knew both how to build and break things. But his movements were precise, clean. He had a kind of control that unnerved her. "Still," she said, "most people don't live on a floating house in the middle of nowhere." Wes looked up from his nodding. "Most people don't fall out of the sky either." That shut her up for a second. Outside, the swamp hummed with life, dragonflies flickering across the surface, birdsong echoing faintly over water. The steady rhythm of frogs and cicadas played like a background score. "I need to leave," Eden said suddenly, the words tumbling out fast. Wes didn't flinch. "You can't walk." "I'll crawl then. You'll die. I've had worse." He walked to a small shelf and began sorting jars, as if she hadn't spoken. "I don't think you have," he said, calm as rain. She tried to stand. Her leg gave way, and she caught herself against the wooden post beside the cot. Gritting her teeth, she stared him down. "I didn't ask for your help." "No, but you needed it. Do you always talk like you're reading out of a survivalist's handbook?" Wes chuckled once, a quiet, unexpected sound. "No, I usually talk less." Eden huffed. She hated that she didn't have a comeback. She hated more that she had no phone, no GPS, no way to call anyone. She'd told no one about the trip, not even her assistant. She hadn't planned on surviving the crash. "Why do you live here?" she asked finally. He didn't look at her. "Why did you fly into the swamp alone?" She stared at him. "Fair enough," she said. Later, he handed her a bowl of something hot. Fish stew by the smell, earthy, a little spicy, with hints of lemongrass and something gamey. She took it despite herself. It burned going down, but it was the first warm thing she'd felt in days. "You cook too," she muttered. Wes shrugged. "I eat." There was a silence, not awkward, just space. "Do you have family?" she asked. Wes didn't answer. "Do you talk to anyone?" she pressed. "No one I need to." Eden rolled her eyes. "Wow, you're just overflowing with warmth." He gave her a look. "You want warm? You picked the wrong part of the country." She tried again that evening. The lantern light was softer this time, casting shadows across the beams. Rain drizzled faintly on the roof, steady and rhythmic. She watched. As Wes knelt near a wooden box, pulling out a rolled map and laying it on the table, she could see outlines, topography of the marsh, hand-drawn notes, markers in faded ink. "What's that?" she asked. He looked over. "Nothing for you to worry about? Is this your territory or something?" "It's not mine. No one owns the swamp. But some of us respect it." Eden sat up straighter, arms crossed. "You're one of those guys, huh?" The noble recluse. Wes smirked. "You're one of those girls, huh? Rich, lost, and mouthy." Her smile vanished. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough." She stood, or tried to. The pain stopped her again. "Go ahead," Wes said. "Prove me wrong." Her breath caught. Not because of the challenge, but because for the first time she wanted to. That night, she couldn't sleep. The roof creaked, the water whispered. Somewhere far off, a bullfrog groaned low and long. Eden stared up at the beams above her head and whispered to the dark, "Who the hell are you, Wes?" He didn't answer. But she knew he wasn't asleep. Not yet. The fever hit just after midnight. Eden had been quieter all day. Too quiet, Wes noticed. Her sarcastic quips had dulled into monosyllables, her gaze hazy even when she tried to focus. She insisted she was fine. She wasn't. Now her skin was slick with sweat, her breath shallow and quick. She murmured nonsense, half-thoughts, broken, memories, spilled out like puzzle pieces that didn't fit. "Dad, I said no. Thomas can go to hell." Wes sat at the edge of the cot, a damp cloth in his hand, wiping her forehead with slow, steady strokes. Her cheeks burned under his palm. He checked the bandage on her leg, still red, still angry. The infection had dug in deeper than he thought. He stood quickly and began pulling dried herbs from the shelf. Fever root, willow bark, a pinch of copper leaf. His hands moved on instinct, the way they had in another life, another uniform, when blood and panic were constants and hesitation killed people. Eden groaned behind him. "Landrix can't buy that. Can't buy me. Grady, he said I was an asset." Wes froze. He turned slowly, stared at her. "What did you say?" She didn't answer, just muttered something about cameras and a boardroom, then fell still again. His stomach twisted. Landrix. He hadn't heard that name in years. He dropped the herbs on the table and stared out the window. Rain streaked the glass. The swamp glistened under a thin moonlight, deceptively calm. Wes's jaw clenched. Breath caught somewhere between fury and disbelief. Landrix Energy. The company that pushed oil into the wetlands. That claimed sustainable expansion, while carving up the ecosystem like a roast. The company that ignored a faulty pressure valve on a drill rig his brother had been servicing. Until it blew. Until he burned. Eden whimpered again, curling into herself. Wes looked back at her. She looked small, vulnerable, human. She hadn't told him her last name. She hadn't needed to. He saw it now, in the shape of her face. The clipped cadence when she spoke, like people were always listening. The quiet panic behind her eyes. Eden Cole, daughter of Edward Cole, heiress to Landrix. He stared at her like a stranger. No, like an echo from a life he'd buried. And still, he didn't walk away. He brewed the tonic in silence. The fire popped and spit under the iron pot. The bitter scent of bark and root filled the cabin. He crushed the herbs with a rough mortar, the pestle grating like bones. When it was done, he sat beside her again and gently tilted her head. Her lips were dry. She coughed weakly, then opened her eyes. Barely. "Here," Wes said. "Drink." She didn't question. She couldn't. He helped her sip slowly. She winced but swallowed. After, she slumped against the pillows, breathing shallow but steady. "You'll sleep soon," he murmured. "You'll sweat it out." Her fingers twitched. "Are you mad at me?" Wes hesitated. "I don't even know you," he said flatly. Eden's voice was faint, but sharp enough. "That's not true. You saved me." Wes said nothing. He reached for the cloth again and pressed it to her temple. "You don't get to pick who you save," he said softly, almost to himself. The hours crawled. Eden drifted between dreams and delirium. She whispered fractured things, a lake house, a man in a suit, being 13 and asked to smile for shareholders. Wes listened but didn't interrupt. In those quiet spaces between words, he began to remember how his brother Josh had laughed when he fixed engines, how he'd once said Wes should have been a field doctor, not a combat medic, how he'd smiled through grease-smudged glasses and saved for a boat that never got finished. All gone. In one careless explosion. One email saying, "No signs of negligence." Wes had buried that version of himself in the swamp. Buried it deep. But Eden's voice was digging it up. Just before dawn, the fever broke. Her breathing slowed. Her body stopped shaking. Wes sat back, exhausted, and watched her sleep. The cabin had grown still again. He stepped outside, barefoot on damp wood, letting the cool air hit his face. The swamp was alive with that eerie hush before sunrise. The kind of silence that holds breath, not emptiness. He lit a cigarette, one of the last in his stash. He didn't smoke often, only when the ghosts came knocking. He inhaled. Landrix. Damn fate for sending her here, for putting her on his land, in his water, in his life. And yet he hadn't let her die. Not because she deserved it, but because she was human, because the swamp doesn't ask your name. It just decides whether to keep you. When he came back inside, Eden stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, searching the ceiling, then finding him. "You were here the whole time?" He nodded. She swallowed. Her voice was hoarse. "What did I say?" "A lot." "Anything embarrassing?" Wes shrugged. "Some corporate confessions. Some fevered rants. You cursed out someone named Thomas. That was pretty entertaining." Eden groaned, pulling the blanket over her face. But then she paused. "You're looking at me different." Silence. "You know who I am, don't you?" Wes didn't answer. "I figured it would come out eventually," she said. "That name always does." He didn't move, didn't blink. "You're the daughter of the company that killed my brother." She flinched like he'd struck her. I know. A beat. I didn't come here for Landrix, she said quietly now. I ran from it. He looked at her for a long moment. His voice was low. Tired. Doesn't change where you came from. No, she agreed. But maybe it changes where I'm going. Wes looked away. You need to rest. But neither of them slept that morning, and neither said the thing that hung heavy in the air. This changes everything. The silence between them stretched like swamp fog, thick, clinging, impossible to see through. Eden sat upright for the first time without collapsing. Her leg was sore but manageable, wrapped neatly with a fresh bandage. She had traded the fever for clarity, and clarity wasn't kind. Wes hadn't said much since the morning after. He boiled herbs, chopped wood, adjusted the lantern, kept busy like a man trying not to remember something, or maybe trying not to feel it. You're angry, Eden said finally. Wes didn't look up. No. Liar. He exhaled through his nose. Still didn't face her. I'm not angry, he said. I'm awake. She tilted her head. What's that supposed to mean? It means I forgot what your last name meant until I heard it out loud, and now I remember too clearly. Eden nodded slowly. The truth tasted like iron on her tongue. I didn't lie to you, she said. You didn't have to. You just didn't. Tell me. That's not the same. It is when you watch someone almost die and then find out they carry the flag of the people who ruined your life. The words hit hard. But she didn't flinch. I didn't ask to be born into Landrix. No, one asked you to fly into my swamp either. That one stung more than it should have. Later, she stepped outside for the first time. The air was thick with humidity, but the breeze off the water was kind. The light bounced off the surface in ripples, painting her skin gold. She leaned against the post of the porch, looking out across the reeds. Wes sat by the fire pit, sharpening a knife. Not dramatically, just methodically, like it was part of who he was. Like survival had become a ritual. She limped over. May I? She asked, motioning. To the seat next to him, he gave a noncommittal grunt. She took it as a yes. For a while they just sat. The blade scraped softly against the stone. You know, she said quietly, I didn't just run from the company. I ran from my whole life. Wes didn't answer. She went on anyway. I was supposed to get engaged next week. Thomas Grady, the merger boy. That's the one you cursed out. She half smiled. That obvious, huh? You were delirious. Also dramatic. They both chuckled, and for the first time in days, it didn't feel strained. I didn't love him, Eden said after a pause. I barely even liked him. But the engagement was a business decision. My life was curated. Wes nodded once. Sounds like prison. She looked at him, surprised. Yeah, it did. Wes set the knife down, finally turned toward her. My brother, he said, voice low. He wasn't some saint, but he believed in the land, in people. He fixed things. He died because the company cut corners, because someone said a repair wasn't worth the delay. She swallowed. I'm sorry. You didn't make the call. No. But maybe I could have stopped it. Maybe if I hadn't spent my life ignoring the blood behind the empire, I would have done something. Her voice cracked then, raw and real. I didn't just run to escape. I ran because I was starting to look in the mirror and see my father, staring back. Wes said nothing, but he didn't move away. Inside the cabin that evening, she helped him grind herbs for poultices. Her hands were clumsy, but he didn't correct her. Just watched, observed. You're not used to doing things slowly, he noted. No, she admitted. Everything in my world is fast. Results. ROI. Data points. This, he said, lifting the pestle, is the opposite of all that. It doesn't work better if you rush. You crush too hard. The oil goes bitter. Too soft. It's useless. She looked at him. Really looked. You're not what I expected. He glanced up. And what did you expect? I don't know. A wild man with a conspiracy theory and a tinfoil hat? Wes smirked. Sorry to disappoint. You don't. Later, as the fire dimmed and she eased back onto the cot, Eden watched the lantern cast soft light across the beams. Her leg throbbed, but the pain was distant now, manageable. Wes sat across the room, arms crossed, back against the wall. He wasn't watching her. Not exactly. Just there, guarding in silence. She wanted to say something. Anything to cut through the fragile quiet that had become more honest than words. But instead, she whispered, "Thank you for not letting me die. Even after you found out who I was." Wes looked at her for a long time. His voice, when it came, was hoarse. "I didn't save you because of who you are, and I didn't stop because of who you were." Eden blinked. Her chest tightened. Not from pain this time, but something harder to name. "And now?" she asked. "I'm still figuring that part out." As the last flame curled into ash, they sat in the warm dark. Two people who had every reason to run from each other. But neither did. Not yet. The days passed, not quickly, but fully. Mornings were soft with fog and birdsong. The swamp always woke before they did, alive with the rustle of wings, the hum of insects, the distant splash of something unseen. Wes moved like the marsh itself, quiet, steady, unknowable. But each day, Eden found him just a little less unreadable. Her leg healed slowly. She could walk now, at least with a makeshift cane Wes fashioned from driftwood and stubborn patience. She hated needing it. He never commented when she cursed under her breath. Instead, he taught her things. How to boil willow bark for pain. How to spot gator slides near the banks. How to listen to the birds, not just hear them, but understand their rhythm. You don't survive the swamp by fighting it, Wes told her one morning, handing her a worn pair of gloves. You survive by becoming a part of it. Eden stared at him, gloves in hand, knee-deep in muck, and gave a dry laugh. What part do I look like right now? Mold? Wes cracked a smile. You're improving. Mold's important. They rebuilt the deck one afternoon. Not because it needed it, but because Wes said working with your hands was how you kept the ghosts quiet. Eden struggled to hold a nail steady at first. By the end of the day, her palms were blistered, her hair plastered to her neck, and her smile unexpectedly wide. You've never done this before? Wes asked, watching her blow hair out of her face. Only in heels and on photo ops. He grunted. We'll call that version of you a lost cause, then. She nudged him with her elbow. She died in the plane crash. Wes didn't reply, but his eyes, quiet and flint gray, softened. Each evening they climbed to the tower. It wasn't much, just a wooden lookout Wes had built above the canopy. But the view stretched miles, unbroken green fading into gold at the edges. They sat side by side in silence, a shared thermos of strong tea between them. The light changed the swamp at dusk, painting it in amber and shadow, until everything looked like a memory you didn't know you had. I get it now, Eden said quietly one evening. Why you stayed? Wes raised an eyebrow. She gestured to the view. All this, the quiet, the space to think your own thoughts. It's honest. Wes took a slow sip of tea. And I'm not ready to leave. The emergency came on a Tuesday. A flare, small and red, burst just above the tree line, arching high before dissolving in a puff of pink smoke. Wes didn't hesitate. He grabbed a pack, tossed Eden a radio, and motioned for the skiff. Someone's hurt. Could be surveyors or poachers. Eden climbed aboard, ignoring the pulse in her ankle. Let's go. She wasn't fast yet, not strong, but she moved like she wanted to belong in that boat. Wes didn't stop her. They found the man after 30 minutes of pushing through backwater. He was half conscious, bleeding from a gash on his leg. Looked mid-30s, stupidly underprepared. Survey team, he rasped. Slipped. Wes worked fast, binding the wound. Eden fetched the med supplies, held the guy's hand while he yelled, kept him talking. Stay with me, she said, firm. You're not dying out here. I get first rights on drama. The man gave a weak laugh. She caught Wes looking at her, not surprised. Proud. They ferried him to a landing point where emergency boats could reach. Before they left, the man looked at Eden. Thanks, miss. You too. Are you from here? She glanced at Wes, then smiled. I guess I am now. That night, they sat by the fire. Eden's body ached. Her palms were raw again, but she hadn't felt this alive in years. You were good today, Wes said, tossing a twig into the flames. I surprised myself, she admitted. You shouldn't. She looked at him. You trust me now? He didn't answer right away. The firelight flickered across his jaw, casting hard lines into something softer. I think you're still figuring out who you are, he said. But I trust that version of you. Eden's heart beat a little harder. That's the one I trust, too, she whispered. When she climbed into bed, the air smelled of pine, smoke, and rain. Her legs ached, her arms burned, but her chest felt oddly light. Outside, Wes kept watch for a while longer, and in the dark, Eden didn't feel lost anymore. Not even a little. The silence of the swamp had never felt so fragile. It started with a low hum in the distance. Faint at first, easy to ignore, like wind. But Wes stiffened mid-step, halfway through restringing a fishing line, eyes tilting toward the horizon. The hum grew louder. Then came the rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. Eden froze on the porch, a bundle of herbs in her hands. That's, she started. Helicopter, Wes said flatly. The bundle slipped from her fingers. They moved fast, but the swamp had its limits. There was nowhere to hide, not really. The sound grew deafening. Wind stirred the treetops. Birds scattered in frightened bursts. And then it appeared. Sleek, black, corporate. It cut across the open water like a blade. Eden backed toward the door. They can't know I'm here, she said. I didn't tell anyone. Wes didn't look at her. Are you sure? She froze, her breath hitched. The trail cam. What? I passed a wildlife camera the day I crashed. It could have... But she didn't finish. The chopper descended into the clearing with the subtlety of a storm. Grass flattened. Dust spiraled. A man in a suit was already stepping out before the blades stopped spinning. Thomas Grady. Of course, his shirt unwrinkled, his smile PR trained, his voice louder than necessary. Eden. She didn't move. Jesus, he muttered, striding toward her. Do you know what you've put us through? The headlines? Your father. He's in cardiac care, Eden. You disappeared 2 weeks before the merger. What the hell were you thinking? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Behind her, Wes stood still, silent, watching. Thomas followed her gaze. He smirked. Really? This guy? Eden bristled. Don't. Thomas stepped closer. Let's go. We've got press waiting. A prepared statement. The firm already spun the wilderness narrative. We just need you to walk through the door and smile." "I'm not going." He laughed, short, disbelieving. "Eden, be serious." She looked him dead in the eye. "I am." Thomas's expression turned. He looked past her, to Wes. "You must be very proud of yourself." Wes didn't respond. His stillness was louder than Thomas's voice. Inside, the cabin felt different now, like it belonged to someone else. Thomas paced while Eden packed the few things she'd brought. Wes sat by the fire, silent. "You really planning to live here?" Thomas scoffed. "This shack? What? Playing pioneer woman now?" Eden zipped. Her pack. "Everything in my life was designed. My clothes, my calendar, even who I was allowed to love." She looked up. "This place is the first thing I ever chose." Outside, the chopper blades spun to life again. Thomas waited beside it, arms crossed, jaw tight. Eden turned to Wes. "I didn't want to be found. I know. I'm not ready to go. But you will." She hesitated. "Do you think I belong in that world?" Wes's eyes held hers for a long moment. Then quietly, "I think you'll never belong anywhere until you stop letting other people decide for you." Her voice cracked. "And if I don't want both worlds?" "Then you choose." She stepped forward, gripping his hand. "Will you wait for me?" His voice was steady. "I don't go many places," she swallowed. "You know where to find me." As the chopper rose, Eden pressed her hand to the window. Wes didn't wave. He just stood there, still as a tree, watching until she disappeared into the sky. New York hit like a slap. Noise. Steel. Flashbulbs. She stepped off the helipad and was immediately swallowed by security, reporters, questions. Her name shouted like a stock ticker. She blinked against the sunlight. Her hair still smelled like pine. Inside the penthouse, her father lay in a hospital bed temporarily moved to his office. He looked thinner, smaller, but his voice was still razor sharp. "You made headlines across the world," he rasped. "You embarrassed us." "I found something worth more than press," Eden replied. His eyes narrowed. "You're still taking over." "No." "Eden," she shook her head. "I'm not stepping into your world, Dad. I'm building my own." That night, Eden sat alone in her apartment. The skyline blinked outside her window. Everything smelled like sterile air. She missed the swamp, the weight of water, the light of a single flame, the silence that asked nothing from her. She didn't know exactly when she would go back, but she would. And when she did, it wouldn't be as someone running. It would be as someone returning. The boardroom was cold, a steel and glass monument to power. The walls were lined with screens, and her name, Eden Cole Returns, flashed across half of them. Executives in designer suits filled the table, pretending to act calm, pretending this wasn't a bomb about to go off. Eden sat at the head. She wore no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a simple braid. She didn't need a stylist or a speechwriter. For the first time in her life, she didn't need anyone to tell her who to be. Her father sat across from her, propped up in his wheelchair. He looked better than he had last week, but not by much. Still, he spoke with authority. "You've had your adventure. Time to come home and do what you were raised to do." Eden leaned forward. "I'm not coming back to run Landrix." Murmurs spread around the table like a virus. Her father's eyes narrowed. "You don't get to make that decision alone." "Yes, I do." Her voice was calm, steady. "I've reviewed my shares. My trust is in my name now. I've read every clause." "You'd walk away from everything?" he said. "I'm not walking away. I'm walking towards something that actually matters." He slammed a hand on the table. "You think your little backwoods rebellion is worth more than what we built?" No, she said, and her voice finally rose. Just enough. I think it's worth more than what we destroyed. Silence. Landrix has poisoned ecosystems, lied on inspection reports, cut corners and cut lives short. You think people don't talk to me just because I was silent? I knew. I just didn't want to believe I was part of it. And now what? He sneered. You'll join a commune? Hug trees? I'm founding the Delta Trust, she said. Effective today. The paperwork is signed, the accounts opened. It will focus on restoring wetlands, funding rescue infrastructure, and launching education programs in vulnerable communities. His face paled. With what money? Mine. She looked around the room. From this moment forward, I am liquidating the majority of my inheritance to fund what this company tried to bury. Half the room gasped. A woman dropped her tablet. You're throwing your future away, her father said, his voice shaking, not with anger this time, but with something more human. Do you even know what it cost to build this? I do now, she said softly. And I'm not paying for it with the rest of my life. She stood. I'm not Eden Cole, CEO in training. I'm not a face for your next ad campaign. I'm not Thomas Grady's fiancée or the girl who vanished. She let the moment breathe. I'm just someone who finally remembered she had a voice. Then she walked out. No notes, no handlers, no regrets. The press conference was impromptu. There was no teleprompter, no branding behind her, just a simple wooden podium and a room full of cameras. The air buzzed with speculation. Microphones pointed like weapons. But Eden didn't blink. She looked into the crowd and saw confusion, hunger, skepticism. Perfect. 3 weeks ago, she began, I was supposed to walk down an aisle and shake hands with the next phase of my legacy. Instead, I got bit by a venomous snake and woke up on a floating cabin in a swamp. A few people chuckled nervously. That cabin saved my life. But more importantly, it reminded me of something I had forgotten. I am not what this company made me. I am not what press releases say I am. I am not for sale. Cameras clicked. Reporters leaned forward. I'm not taking over Landrix. I'm stepping out. Completely. Gasps now. Phones up. The livestream ticker exploded. I've used my inheritance to fund the Delta Trust, a nonprofit committed to protecting the very land our corporation has threatened for years. I'm investing in rescue teams who save the lost, in students who've never seen a clean river, in scientists who weren't invited to the table because they told inconvenient truths. She paused. I've had power my whole life, but I never had peace. Now I do. And I plan to protect it, with every dollar and every day I have left. No applause. Not yet. Just stunned silence. And then someone clapped. Then another. And then the whole room was on its feet. She left the building through the back door, ducked the security team, ignored her phone. She slipped into a cab with nothing but a backpack and an envelope tucked under her arm. Inside the envelope was a photo, a still shot of the clearing, snapped from the chopper the day she left. In it, Wes stood at the edge of the water, unmoving, unapologetic. That night, she booked a one-way flight back to Louisiana. She didn't send a message ahead. She wanted to arrive the way she had the first time, unexpectedly, on her own terms, and fully herself. The trail was exactly as she remembered, uneven, soft underfoot, damp with morning dew. The air was heavier here, thicker with scent and sound. Spanish moss hung like whispers from the trees. The cypress roots reached up from the ground like gnarled fingers. It wasn't welcoming, but it wasn't hostile either. It simply was. Eden walked alone. She had left everything behind again. But this time, it wasn't escape. It was return. Her body remembered the rhythm of the swamp, even if her muscles protested. Every step was deliberate. She wasn't rushing. She wanted to feel every part of this. The path narrowed where it always had, past the leaning cedar, over the fallen log that looked like a broken bridge. Her breath caught as she cleared the last bend. The cabin. It looked the same. Weathered, but solid. Smoke curled gently from the chimney. A pot of herbs still hung to dry near the door. For a moment she stood in the clearing, afraid to move, afraid that getting closer would make it all disappear. But then the door opened. Wes stood there. He didn't look surprised. He didn't say a word. Eden stepped forward. Her throat tightened. Her boots crunched softly against the dirt. She didn't stop until she was right in front of him, close enough to smell pine and ash and something that was just him. "I came back," she said. "I see that?" She gave a half laugh, half breath. "I didn't come to visit. I didn't assume." He still hadn't moved. But his eyes, those storm-gray eyes, searched her face like he was looking for proof she wasn't a ghost. Eden reached for his hand. He let her. "I chose this," she said. "I chose you." His jaw tensed, but he didn't pull away. "You left. I had to know if what I felt here was real, or just escape. And," she smiled, "it's real." Wes didn't smile back, but something inside him, something older than grief, finally let go. His fingers curled around hers. "Then come in," he said. The cabin hadn't changed, but there were small things. An extra chair, a new row of books. The lantern she had once stared at for hours now sat beside a worn notebook with her initials, carved into the corner. She ran her fingers across the edge of the table. "You didn't forget. I don't forget what matters." That night they didn't talk much. They sat by the fire, a shared blanket draped over their shoulders. She told him about the press conference, about the foundation, about her father's silence and the way the city felt like a costume she'd finally outgrown. He didn't interrupt. Just listened like he had when she was delirious and bleeding, like her words mattered, even when they were messy. "I didn't come back to be saved this time," she said. "I didn't think you did." She looked at him. "Do you believe in second chances?" Wes turned toward her slowly. "No, but I believe in choosing again, and again. Every day." She nodded. "Then let's choose." Spring came with bright greens and bold skies. The swamp didn't care about their reunion. It went on singing, growing, decaying, rebirthing. But Eden and Wes began to reshape a corner of it, with respect, not control. Together, they opened the Lightkeeper's Station, a place where lost hikers could rest, where kids from New Orleans came to learn how to read a compass and forage safely, where Wes taught first aid in the field, and Eden taught how to fight for land without burning it down. They didn't advertise. People just found them. Maybe because the world was starving for stillness. Or maybe because truth has its own gravity. Visitors came and left changed, and every time, Eden would tell the story, not of a princess saved from a snake, but of a girl who got bit by the life she was raised to live, and chose not to die from. Yet sometimes people asked if the story was real. Wes would smile, slow and sideways. Real enough to scar. One evening, as the sky turned to rose and lavender, Eden and Wes walked the trail behind the cabin. The same one she had stumbled down all those months ago, barely conscious, terrified and fighting for every breath. Now, she walked beside him, barefoot, steady. They reached the bluff overlooking the water. The last light hit the trees like fire. Eden rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't found me that day?" "I do," he said. "And I don't like it." She turned to him. "You once said I was lucky you were nearby. I remember. Well, I was lucky for a lot more than that. Wes looked at her. I was lucky you didn't give up on people, even when the world gave you every reason to. His hand tightened in hers. And I was lucky you stopped running. They stood in silence as the sun disappeared, not to mourn its passing, but to honor its return. Because they knew now, the light always remains. You just have to find your way back to it.